The Nikkor Z 35mm 1.8s was one of 3 lenses announced alongside the new Nikon Z mirrorless full-frame system in 2018, the others being the 50mm 1.8 and the 2470 f4 kit zoom. With its slightly wider than normal angle of view, it's perfect for street, events, and any other genre that requires you to capture some of the context surrounding your subject. According to Nikon, the S in its name represents words such as superior, special, and sophisticated, so we were very curious to see whether these words accurately reflect its real-world performance. The 35mm 1.8 isn't a small prime by any means, but it's a very good match for cameras in the Z system, such as the Z7 as you can see here. It's also surprisingly lightweight. It has a plain black exterior with a metal and polycarbonate construction that's fully weatherproof against dust and moisture. Even the front and rear elements are coated with fluorine to repel water, dust, and dirt. It has a metal mount, a 62mm filter thread, and a petal-shaped lens hood that reverses over the barrel. Most of the barrel is occupied by a large ribbed focus ring. The only other physical feature is the autofocus manual focus switch on the side of the barrel. A useful characteristic of the focus ring is that you can set it to adjust exposure compensation or the aperture value when used in autofocus mode. However, be aware that the ring moves quite freely, so if you brush against something or touch the ring without meaning to, you might accidentally end up dialing in an extreme change that you didn't want. When compared to the 35mm 1.4 lenses for the Nikon F mount, the new 35mm 1.8 appears sharp at the center even at the fastest apertures. The performance peaks between f4 and f5.6, where the results are razor sharp. f8 is also very good, whereas f11 and f16 show signs of diffraction. However, it's in the corners that the new 35mm really shines. It beats both the Nikkor and the Sigma 35mm 1.4 lenses, most noticeably at the fastest apertures. The lens has a minimum focus distance of 25 centimeters, which is good for capturing details, but not quite enough if you want to take proper macro shots. Even without focusing at the minimum distance, it's still possible to separate the subject from the background at the fastest aperture values as long as the subject isn't too far away. The bokeh is decent, but can appear somewhat nervous with a busy background, as you can see from these examples. The Nikon RAW files are already corrected, so lens aberrations such as vignetting and distortion don't really pose a problem. There is some light fall-off up until around f2.8, but if it bothers you, you can easily tweak it in post-production. Of course, it's also possible to apply lens corrections in camera by adjusting the vignette control in 4 steps according to the strength that you want, and turning on auto distortion control. As for chromatic aberration, it's present across the frame at f1.8 but doesn't disappear completely until f5.6. From a lens as expensive as this, I would have expected better control over fringing, but as always, it can be edited out in post. The internal autofocus mechanism of the 35mm is very quick and accurate, although it can occasionally hunt back and forth in less than perfect light conditions. It's barely audible when shooting stills and only produces a slight whirring noise when recording video. In manual focus mode, I found the focus ring very accurate and pleasant to use. There isn't a distance scale on the barrel of the lens like many other Nikkor DSLR lenses, but this doesn't really matter because 95% of the time you'll be using this lens in autofocus mode anyway. Nikon has placed a lot of emphasis on the superior optical quality of its new generation of lenses and the new Z mount, and as far as sharpness is concerned, I feel it lives up to the hype. Although center sharpness is comparable to other f-mount lenses with the same focal length, corner sharpness is much better, especially at the fastest apertures. Other advantages include its solid yet lightweight weather-sealed construction and fast and silent autofocus motor. I also enjoyed how you can customize the focus ring in autofocus mode, despite the fact that the ring moves about a little bit too freely. There were only two aspects that disappointed me a little. The bokeh can appear nervous with busy backgrounds, and I was surprised to see as much chromatic aberration as I did at the fastest apertures. The biggest issue most potential users will have with this lens, however, is its high retail price. At around $850, it's much more expensive than the Nikkor 35mm 1.8 lens for DSLRs, and around $50 more than Sigma's 35mm 1.4 art lens. So unless you really require excellent corner sharpness at all aperture values, it may make more sense for current Nikon users to invest in the FTZ adapter for the time being and continue using whichever 35mm they have in their collection.